Hi, I'm Dave Bundy, editor of the Lincoln Journal-Star, and this is our editorial board endorsement interview with James Michael Bowers, candidate for District 46 in the state legislature. We're joined by, James will talk to us in a minute, but first, Kent, you're a familiar face, but introduce yourself anyway, please.
Yeah, I'm Kent Walgamot. I write about arts and entertainment, and I've been on the editorial board for little more than 10 years.
All right, so that means nothing could shock you now, right?
That I think is correct.
All right. Okay. Well, James, we really appreciate you being with us today, and your willingness to both be a public servant and run for office. So the first question for you, and you can go into a little bit of your background as well, but why do you're on the city council, why do you want to be in the legislature, and what experiences and attributes qualify you for service there?
Thanks so much for that question. Like I stated earlier, my name is James Michael Bowers. I'm a school social worker, a mental health therapist, a small business owner, and also a member of the Lincoln City Council. The world isn't the same place that it was 10 years ago, and I've had the fortune of serving the city over the past 3.5 years on the city council. During those 3.5 years, our community has faced some unprecedented events, including a global pandemic and increasing polarization. Even through a global pandemic and increasing polarization, I've been able to get things done for our city. I've been able to get things done that improve the quality of life of Lincolnites, that provide more access to service, all while being financially and fiscally responsible at the same time. It's important that we send a person to the legislature who knows what the current environment is like and who knows what it takes to get things done in the here and now. Multiple people that I've worked with over the years through my professional career as a school social worker or a mental health therapist, or serving in public service as your councilman, have said that there have been some unique challenges that have come up that we've never faced before. When I was working in the schools as a social worker, I worked firsthand with our students and our families, helping them get back on track with learning and helping make sure that families have the resources they need while also keeping families safe. As a mental health therapist, again, on the front lines, I saw how the increasing isolation and the pandemic have impacted people's mental health. We need to make sure that the people that we send to the legislature know what it's like for working families, know what it's like for children and families, and have the skills and the experience to get things done and to deliver for Nebraskans.
All right. Well, you sort of alluded to, a divided and sort of conflicted population. Our state feels divided. The nation feels divided. How do you, serving in the legislature, how do you represent, or is there even a way to represent those who might have a different view from you? How do you listen to them? How do you advocate for them if you don't necessarily agree with them?
Absolutely. I'm very proud of the coalition of supporters that include Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. Groups that have endorsed me include groups from Nebraska Farm Bureau to Nebraska Farmers Union, Lincoln Police to Nebraska social workers, local educators, and local working families. I've made an entire career out of being able to build unique coalitions to bring the most amount of good to people in Nebraska. One of the best ways to build those relationships with people that we may not see eye to eye with on is being consistent with what we say, being willing to be vulnerable, and being willing to be honest at all times. People who serve with me on the council and community stakeholders that I've worked with to pass ordinances and initiatives through the city know that there are no surprises there are no surprises that come from me. People know where I stand on the issues. What are the key points that I will need to learn in order to get on board with someone else's idea or initiative? And what are the things that are priorities for me, as well as what are the things that really speak to the folks that I represent? Being able to have vulnerable, open, and trusting relationships with each other is definitely one of the keys that I've learned while serving over the past 3.5 years during the global pandemic and during the increased polarization. And that has been increasingly successful. There's a reason why I've been able to pass several ordinances and initiatives while on the city council with a broad, diverse portfolio of supporting children and families, to protecting our seniors, to standing up for our veterans, and helping support small businesses so every Lincolnite has the opportunity to achieve the American dream. The proof is in the pudding there, and I'm very proud of the skills that I've been able to develop in building relationships with people across the aisle, across the political spectrum, and that's shown through the individuals who have endorsed me, the groups that have endorsed me, as well as the individuals who have supported our campaign and have voted.
All right. Well, you had a moment just a few seconds ago. You were talking about the American dream, and immigration is largely a federal issue, but that doesn't seem to stop the state or the legislature from talking about it, whether it's dreamers or issues involving licensures, professional licensures, and things like that. What priorities or solutions do you see, or would you like to push for as far as immigration law, immigration rules here in Nebraska?
Absolutely. While I was on the city council, I supported a resolution that supported our DACA folks in our city. At the state legislature, our state knows that we had a workforce shortage and that we need to have more folks in Nebraska in order to meet our workforce needs. We need to be able to help folks that choose to come to Nebraska to be able to get jobs with that tax base, while also helping folks that come to Nebraska be able to use the skills and experience to do jobs that they may have done before, like you mentioned with professional licensures. Every profession is experiencing a shortage, and we need to help make sure that folks that want to come to Nebraska, and work, that we provide a pathway to do that, because it's not only good for the families that come to Nebraska, but it's also good for Nebraskans and Lincolnites when we have more nurses, when we have more doctors, and when we have more folks here paying into the tax pool to help support state resources and state services.
All right, shifting gears a little bit. Accusations of voter fraud have cast doubt on the election process, at least in the minds of some people. What would you do if you were pressured to play a role in overturning an election? And then are more protections needed as far as either voting rights or voting security?
We should not overturn an election. I know that there are still claims that different elections should be overturned, but I am not supportive of that. During the last election, I'm proud of the city and county when we expanded drop boxes so folks could drop off ballots. We need to expand the ability to vote. I think of people like my mother who have health conditions, and it's hard for her to leave her home. And so making sure that we have vote by mail available, early voting available, and make it convenient and easy for folks to participate in the civic process is an absolute crucial necessity. I don't support things like voter ID, and I don't support things that would reduce a person's ability to cast a vote. Our city, our state, and our country do better when more people participate in the civic process, and we should be encouraging those and not restricting them.
All right. James, you're flying through here, but I'm pretty sure Kent will throw a wrench in this. But I've still got a couple of questions before we get to the Kent section, and then I'll have a final one that's sort of open-ended for you. But describe your views on prohibiting or limiting abortion in Nebraska.
As a social worker and as a mental health therapist, I've worked with people who've had to deal with this issue on a wide spectrum. I've worked with victims of incest, worked with victims of rape, and I've worked with family members who have found that there had been medical complications with their pregnancy. Nebraska does not need further restrictions on abortion, and we need to make sure that when we have discussions about abortion, that we're having medically accurate and socially accurate discussions about policy. There's a lot of rhetoric that exists, and we do not need to further restrict abortion, and we need to make sure that healthcare is available. And as someone who has worked with people in that decision, in that personal decision. I've seen firsthand how abortion has been the choice that some people have made, and we need to respect that choice. And we should not have the government be making that decision between doctors and families.
All right. Should the legislature scrap nonpartisanship? And if not, what can you do as a member of the legislature to make the legislature less partisan?
Nebraska should not scrap the nonpartisan legislature model. When I've talked with, one of my favorite things to do is to talk with other council members across the nation when dealing with an issue that Lincoln is facing, or with a new initiative or an ordinance, to kind of see if other cities have done it and how it's impacted their cities, and seeing how things have worked out. When I've talked with other council members across the nation, our nonpartisan legislature is something that gets brought up a lot. Nebraskans are proud of our nonpartisan legislature, and most Nebraskans want to have a representative that's going to fight for them and not a specific political party. They may not like the other political party, but they want their elected officials to fight for them. In addition to that, when we get rid of the nonpartisan makeup of our legislature, it's going to become more about national politics rather than local resident needs in solving policy issues. I know that there's been conversation about how the nonpartisan nature of the legislature has been at risk and how it's ebbed and flowed over the past few years. But I would argue the fact that it's still standing and still remaining, and when initiatives get brought up about removing the nonpartisan nature of our legislature, there's a strong response from people in Nebraska and in Lincoln saying that we need to keep the partisan nature out of policy making, and we need to put people first, not party leaders.
All right. Thank you for that. So like I said, I have one last question, but it has to be the last question because it kind of gives you a chance to catch up on anything we might have missed. But Kent always has to ask about, water and, his environmental stuff. So Kent, take it away.
Yes, well, before that question, my first one is always, most of the work in the legislature, the real work gets done in committee. Have you given some thought as to what committees that you'd like to try to get on if you are elected?
Yes. When I think of the committees that I'd like to serve on, being a school social worker, being a school therapist for several years of my career, I think I'd be really suited to serve on the education committee. In addition to my work as a social worker and working on the front lines of child welfare and dealing with health and human services policy, and also serving during the global pandemic, I'm also currently chair of the Board of Health for the city and the county. I think the Health and Human Services Committee would be another committee that I'd be well suited for and would be able to hit the ground running on. Although I'm realistic to know that I'm not guaranteed any specific committee. So some of the other committees that I think I could also hit the ground running on would be maybe urban affairs as a city council member, government, military, and veteran affairs, or possibly business and labor would be some other choices that I would be interested in and think that I could hit the ground running in serving Nebraskans in the legislature.
Now for the water question. I'm specifically interested in your thoughts about the two huge water projects that sort of got an okay in the last session, but aren't really fully developed yet. The canal from Colorado in southwest Nebraska, and the big lake up by Ashland.
I'm not opposed to them, but I do have some questions, and I want to see more accountability, and I want to see more of what the outcome would be for both of those projects. I'm concerned about the legal issues that could come up, and I'm worried about how those dollars would be best spent. I'm not opposed to it, but I want to make sure that when we spend dollars going into these projects, that is the best use of money, and that is going to bring the most bang for the buck for Nebraskans in our state. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm also worried about the legal challenges that could arise. And while I'm not afraid of taking a stand and doing the right thing, and knowing when we're doing things legally and appropriately, I do think that is a consideration to take in mind when we talk about other states being involved.
My next question is one that has been constant for the last 5 years or more. What are your thoughts on the need to build a new prison other than perhaps to replace the penitentiary?
Building a new prison does not address the underlying issue that our state is facing with incarceration and recidivism. Those dollars would be best spent going to looking at 3 different areas. Why people are being incarcerated, what happens when people are incarcerated, and what happens when people leave incarceration. If we can look at the reasons of why people are getting incarcerated, are they a real danger to society? Or do we disagree with a life choice that they may have made? If they are incarcerated, are we providing them the tools to get on their feet once they leave incarceration? And then also, what are we doing to support them once they have left? Those are all can be pretty controversial issues, especially when we talk about what happens when people leave incarceration. But it's important that we have some honest conversations about what we're not doing well and what we can do better in. So I don't support building a new prison because that does not address the underlying issue that our state is facing. And I think a better priority is to look at why people are being incarcerated, what is bringing them back, and what can we do to make sure that we are rehabilitating and providing services while folks are incarcerated. Similar, I want to also mention that if we don't do those things, I'm concerned that the incarceration system will become an even bigger mental health provider, and that should not be the case. Our prisons and jails should not be a mental health provider for Nebraskans, and we need to look at alternative ways to meet those needs rather than maybe addressing the short-term goal of building a new prison.
And finally, and I guess this is one you've deal with a bit on the council, it's, I think, inevitable that property tax relief, property tax, valuation, all of those issues are going to once again be front and center at the legislature in the next session. What are your thoughts on what needs to be done with the tax system?
So we definitely need to look at how property tax dollars are coming in. And one of the reasons why I say that is when I go door to door, property taxes are, of course, one of the things that people bring up the most. Specifically, I hear it a lot from our senior population and our aging population that are becoming concerned that they are not able to afford to stay in their house. So then I share information about homestead exemption and services that may help alleviate that burden. Also kind of related to that, you didn't bring this up specifically, but I think it's important to talk about, is also talking about home equity theft. And there was a constituent that I worked with who thought she had been paying her property taxes for 3 years. Long story short, she had moved to Nebraska. She was part of a homeowners association, and she was in her 70s and a cancer patient. But she had the money to pay her property taxes, but she thought that was coming out of her homeowner association. 3 years later, she was getting an eviction notice. And I think it was for like $10,000, somewhere around there, that they had purchased. Thankfully, we were able to work through a solution with the folks that were doing that, my constituent. But that is something also that I like to bring up when we talk about property taxes, because people should not be able to come in, pay a small percentage of back property taxes and then get a windfall from that home equity, and then putting some seniors that have lived in that home their entire life, or even have the money to pay the property taxes out on the street. So that's something that I always like to mention when we talk about property taxes. But we need to look at how tax dollars are coming in, and we need to be smart about it. I know that we have a state reserve fund, and I would not agree with clearing that out to provide property tax relief, because I think that might be a short-sighted solution. I think it's important that when we look at tax solutions. We need to look at long-term solutions and not something that's going to be a quick political win. And that involves some hard conversations. That involves hard conversations about where dollars are going to be coming in from, where dollars may be not there to support services. But it's not, we need to make sure that we have long-term thinking and long-term solutions for that. I think especially when we talk about younger folks who may not rent, property taxes may not be the biggest issue. And it may not be the reason why youth are leaving our state and we're having a brain drain. But it is an issue that is important to especially homeowners and older folks in our community. And so it's important that it is an issue that we talk about when we bring up, but we make sure that we have stakeholders to address people that are younger who may not own a home or who may not want to own a home, and not shifting the complete tax burden onto them either. So it takes a lot of compromise and a lot of long conversation, and there's been a lot of solutions that have been brought forward, but it doesn't seem like nothing has found a chord yet that strikes well with everyone. And we'll have to keep the door open and make sure that we're not having easy political gains as the answer.
Thank you.
All right, Kent, are you done?
I'm done.
All right. So, James, the last question for you is kind of your chance to have a parting shot. What haven't we asked you that you wish we would have?
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to kind of sum up. I've lived in North Lincoln my entire life. I am proud to come from Havelock. I am a middle school social worker at the middle school that I went to growing up. I own a business in the neighborhood that I lived in growing up, all to help serve people in our city and help serve people in North Lincoln. When I was elected in 2019, I was not expecting that our community would be facing as many challenges as we did. I don't think anyone was. But that's what happened. And because of those changes that our community has faced, that really has made me battle tested and proven to do the right thing, regardless on if it's a political easy win or not, or if it may be an unpopular decision. I'll always put Lincolnites and Nebraskans first, and I proved that on the city council. I also have the ability to build relationships in this increasing polarized time that we lived in. And like I mentioned, I have Democrats, independents, and Republicans who've gotten behind our campaign. I have people who currently serve in the legislature and have past served in the legislature that have provided a solo endorsement. And the reason why they have is they know that our legislature and our state is not the same place that it was before. And we need someone who knows what the current environment is like and has the skills to get things done while building those relationships. And I've proven that I am able to build those relationships. And I think my end product has shown that. Some of the things that I'm most proud of accomplishing on the city council was making sure that our city budget include a program for newborns and their parents to help provide a visit from a registered nurse within the first 3 weeks of their life. That helps deal with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. Postpartum suicide is an issue that's not talked about, but this program helps address that. It helps make sure that kids are safe. I'm also proud of the fact that when we were facing tough budget decisions, I was able to work with the city to make sure that our libraries were not shut down extra days, because I could not in good faith or with a good mindset eliminate the services that I took advantage of while I was growing up. My library was a place that I went to after school when I was in middle school. And the librarians there were great and amazing, and I always will respect them for that. But we need to make the next generation have what we had when we were growing up and make sure that they're supported even more. In addition, I'm also proud of the things that I've been able to do with businesses and be able to work with the business community to make sure that we cut red tape and remove regulations that just don't make sense anymore. I'm also proud of the fact that I've been able to stand up for veterans, including funding writing support to the Veterans Day Parade, and also making sure that our veterans have emotional supports available to them when they were at threat of losing them. I love the inclusive parks that will be coming to our city. I was able to get funding for that in our city budget after working with mothers of children with special needs and hearing their stories about how when they go to the park, all they can do is just sit and watch other kids play. And that's not the kind of Lincoln that's not the kind of Lincoln that we are. We need to make sure that all kids have access to play and that all kids have access to that childhood experience. I've also been able to support budgets that are fiscally responsible while also reducing the tax levy at the same time. And again, also sum up with the organizations that have supported me in building a unique coalition from Nebraska Farm Bureau to Farmers Union, with local police to social workers, educators, and working families and folks in the labor community. Very proud of the strong coalition, the strong things that I've been able to accomplish. And that is what made me that is what has made me the best person suited to fight for North Lincoln in the legislature, while also getting things done and turning down the temperature in politics to hopefully decrease polarization while improving the quality of life for all of us.
All right. Well, James, thank you very much for your interview and your time. Thank you for a very complete closing statement too. You made good use of that, so got a lot in there. So with that, I think we are wrapped up. We wish you the best with your campaign, and again, thank you for taking time for this interview.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye.